Welcome to another episode of Everything Intellectual Property. Today, we have a very special guest with us. This gentleman has created a revolutionary material that enhances your grip. Please help me welcome the co-founder of Chalkless, James Pidhurney. How's it going, James?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. My first podcast. So
no, for sure. So
give the opportunity.
We're breaking you in. So I feel honored to have you as on the first podcast. Definitely break you in. I would imagine this won't be the last. I would imagine that as time goes on, you will do more and more of these things. And I guess at the beginning, and I'm not sure if you have actual product with you in your office or where you're located, but I always like to, for the listeners who may be listening to this on audio only and not the video portion of it, can you describe the product and kind of what it is that you guys are doing with the product?
Yeah, certainly. So what we have is called Chalkless Grip Enhancer. And it's a dry material that we came up with early on in COVID to help with people's grip. We identified at that point that what drives the slip and grip for people's activities isn't really sweat, it's the oil that's on your hands. So we needed to, my background's chemical engineering, so we decided to focus on the driving factor for that slipperiness and come up with a material that selectively removed it. And that's how Chalkless was born. Kind of out of a necessity, and I didn't really plan on making a business out of it, but everybody loved
it. And this is interesting because I guess, I'm coming up just as an athlete, weightlift competitions and football player at the collegiate level, all the way up to the collegiate level. And I guess you don't think about, we're used to the chalk, and obviously you guys are chalkless, hence this product doesn't have chalk, hence the name Chalkless. Why do you believe that so many people, or like the chalk that dries your hand, became such a thing when it seems like that's not necessarily getting to the core of the issue?
Sure. So I think for a lot of people, it just ended up, they needed something, and there aren't really that many great options out there. I mean, people use sawdust and the tactical shooting space. They use dirt off the ground. Anything they can do to remove that moisture off of their hands certainly helps versus being like soaked and oily. Like the worst situation, like think driving. Worst situation is wet, oily roads. You'll slide all over the place. So putting sawdust, whatever, on your hands, you're going to remove most of that and improve your situation. What we figured out, though, was that, and this is through talking to a whole bunch of users, in a lot of applications, chalk is actually used as a lubricant, not really used for grip enhancing. You can think about for gymnasts. They apply it all over their hands so they can better spin around the bar and actually reduce friction in that particular application. Or billiards players, where they'll take it and put it on their hand to allow the cue to slide. So what we thought of was like, gosh, there's a material that's being out there right now to enhance grip, but is it really the best thing that could be done? And in looking into it more deeply, it absolutely isn't. The particle size of chalk, they're not conducive to friction, I guess I would say, nor is it chemically designed to do what it is we do, where you get rid of that slip.
Well, and again, that's pretty interesting. And and I think you had commented on the breakdown that I did on the YouTube channel of kind of your guys' pitch. And again, a lot of times I think names can, I don't want to say make or break the company, but I think they have a big part of branding. I was kind of looking at the last week's episode doing the pitches, and I know Mark was giving kind of one of the participants kind of breakdown of, hey, you maybe should change your name just because it's kind of, I think it was Courtney's, but they're selling like Christmas pajamas, and he gave them more of a fun name. And it seems like in your case, I love the name. And I wanted to ask you, what made you guys come up with the name Chalkless? Did you guys just want to really get across to the point that this is not chalk, or was it another way that name came about?
So I would love to tell you that it was a involved process with lots of thoughts and analysis, but really what it came down to was, and it came up to IP and trademarks, where we struggled so much to find any sort of name that had, say, grip in the title, or it was next to impossible. Everything had been claimed because we weren't looking at just around here, but globally. So we needed to kind of almost make up a word to a certain extent, because that's certainly easier to trademark while also getting across that we are not chalk. So, gosh, it was a lengthy meeting finally with lots of us sitting on there, lots of really smart people we worked with, essentially coming up with names, looking it up and be like, nope, doesn't work. Can't get the domain. Next. And finally, we landed on this one. We're like, wow, all right, this sounds pretty good. Let's roll with it.
And I agree with you. I definitely think it sounds good. But I guess now that I think about it, and just kind of being in a IP space. It is a lot of companies or a lot of, I would imagine, not only domain names, but trademarks that have the name Grip in it. So yeah, it probably would have been tough to trying to kind of figure out that aspect of it. And again, just maybe kind of going back, you were describing the product. So this stuff is kind of taking out the oils from your hands. So I'm assuming that I know a lot of times, especially me personally, when you get nervous or whatever the case may be, you can kind of feel. I'm assuming that the body is kind of creating this oil that is kind of going to our hands or whatever the case may be, and this is stripping that oil from, at least in this case, the hands. Correct?
To a certain extent, what do you like? My fans, your hands will just have a natural slickness to them, and that's that oil that's there.
Yep.
But when you do get nervous, exercise, whatever, you have glands in your hands that secrete sweat. And in that particular case, that's just water and salt, but not the oil. The oil is always tied to wherever you have hair follicles. I have lots of hair follicles there, and that's where the sebaceous glands are, where the oil comes out. So what ends up happening is that slick oil on your hands always comes from, rub your nose, scratch your arm, whatever it be, you're transferring it from other parts of your body.
Wow.
So the beauty of Chalkless is once you put it on and you rub it in and remove that oil, it's not coming back until you do something like run your hands through your hair or something else. So it will last, like CrossFit's my thing, an entire workout. I'll put it on once. That slick oil never returns unless I touch somewhere else. So even if I sweat, like I get like condensation prints on the floor or something along those lines, that water and salt mixture that you're excreting isn't really slick. Neither one of them is slippery on its own. So I will still have a vastly superior grip, even if that sweat is coming through my hands because the oil is gone.
So hold on. See, and this is why I love doing these podcasts, because I get a chance to learn a ton that I hadn't already learned. So you're saying that the oils in the hand is coming from us kind of rubbing our hair, rubbing our skin,
Yep.
rubbing our facial hair, other parts that includes this oil, and they kind of naturally go to our hand. But if you kind of use this material or your guys' material to strip that oil away, it's not coming back unless you essentially get it back from rubbing different parts of your body.
You gotta touch something else and get it transferred there.
Wow.
That was a key learning, because why is it lasting so long? We couldn't quite figure it out. And that's when, dug into the cross section of skin and saw where all the glands were placed. Like, wait a minute, both your palms and the soles of your feet are the only places on your body that you don't have sebaceous glands.
Look, I feel like that's worth the podcast right there, just understanding that fact. A lot of times, and again, because it seems so straightforward. I remember having Dr. Dave Smith on, and I'm not sure if you know him, but he created the Q collar. I'm not sure if you kind of watch sports a lot. I would imagine with this product that you maybe do, but you see a lot of the NFL players where they have this kind of collar on their neck, and it kind of, I forget the technical terminology, but it kind of pushes, I think, on the jugular veins, which kind of fills the blood up so that between your skull and your brain, so that if you get kind of impact during football, it kind of the force or the impact kind of goes through, as opposed to it's trapped in your brain. So, and again, it seems pretty, like, as you break it down like that, it seems pretty straightforward. And I guess in his case, he was kind of, his way of being able to kind of go into this is how a woodpecker continue to ram his head into a wood or into a tree, and it doesn't have a concussion, or it can do that time and time again over the course of his life. But I guess the reason I'm saying all this is kind of for this question. With this problem being around forever, as far as grip, everybody, like you said, there's a ton of trademarks, there's a ton of companies that are trying to figure out this grip issue. Is it amazing when you sit back and say, nobody thought about this before we came along?
It is pretty amazing. I'll say, so we did it for fun just in the beginning. And then before we actually decided to make it a product, we did a whole lot of digging to see whether or not this is something we could protect. Because I actually came from a big chemical company before this, where IP ruled the day.
Yep.
And a lot of decisions were based upon whether or not you could actually protect this idea. Because when you're expanding globally, the money and time invested in that could be completely lost if somebody just steals your idea.
Yep. No, you're exactly right about that. So then I guess I know you had mentioned, as far as the inspiration, at least what I was kind of doing my digging and my homework in preparation for this interview, it seems like the partner, Greg, he was maybe having some grip issues. I'm not sure if he was playing racquetball or tennis, and he came to you and said, hey, this is the issue I'm having. And kind of you went into the lab and like, okay,
Mhm.
let's see if I can figure it out. Is that kind of how that went as far as the inspiration for
It
Chalkless?
really did. Yeah. So this was right at the beginning of COVID. Our existing business that we're in was essentially flat. Well, not even flat. I'd say dead is probably a better word. We're in the temporary construction product business. And when the national emergency was declared, all the hotels and casinos where we were selling our product instantly shut down. So he and I were actually meeting to talk about what it was we were going to do while the pandemic was going on, having no idea how long it would last. And he had been playing tennis. So just part of that discussion, he's like, "Hey, listen, my hands keep slipping when I'm playing. You have any ideas on what I could do to like make it so they don't slide around anymore?" Because he knows I'm a chemical engineer and I love just coming up with crazy ideas and working on problems. And I thought, sure, I'll go dig into it and see what I can find. And he ended up becoming the test bed, he and his friends, for different things that I would come up with. Many, many failures early on, which I think anyone listening, that's the most important part of all this thing, is trying and failing as fast and as cheaply as you possibly can until you come up with a solution that, your customers would like. And that's what happened. Just multiple iterations, lots of things that didn't work. And eventually it all just kind of funneled into something that was promising, to the point where it was worthwhile to, start digging around. And we were very surprised to find, because I, up to this point, don't know that I ever had in the IP world, finding a block of, I guess, white space where nobody had looked at this particular type of material for this particular application, not just its use on the skin and hands, but sports balls, how to dispense it, anything. So our IP lawyer was giddy with all the stuff that he was able to claim around the raw material in Chalkless and how it could be used. So,
And again, that's like the perfect situation, especially as an IP attorney, kind of drafting claims in a space where, like you said, is a white space or it's open ended, because you don't have to worry about trying to get over this prior art or that prior art. You're pretty much all going to be the standard, where 10, 20, 30 years from now, people are going to be referencing your patent as, they're trying to look to kind of build off what it is that you guys did all these years before, which is a cool feeling as not only a patent attorney, but it helps out the patent attorneys, especially an easy thing, but also as an inventor, it has to be a good feeling. I think some applications that I prosecute, I still run into examiner at the USPTO site, a patent that was issued by Nikola Tesla way back when. So that kind of goes to show you how much he was ahead of his time in inventing back in the early 1900s or maybe late 1800s. So then 2 years it took, and then you guys have this. And like you said, you're a chemical engineer and you're working, you're doing different things. And now, from my understanding, you are full-time within the business. What was that decision like? Because I know a lot of times people try to, okay, let me keep the day job until I'm at a good point to be able to kind of go full-time into the business. Some people just do both of them for an indefinite period. So for you, being a chemical engineer, having, like I said, working with a big company, what was that thought process to say, okay, I'm going to go all in on Chalkless?
Well, and this might be kind of a self-serving statement, but for this particular podcast, but the IP did play a big part in this. So looking at this opportunity, seeing that we had this white space locked up, that coupled with the overwhelmingly positive feedback that we received, not just from the few little applications we were looking at, but also other ones where it was organically just expanding to other areas, told us that this deserved our attention, and that my time should be taken away from that temporary protection business. Even though it started up now and it's quite successful, I don't really spend much time at all doing that, purely because the potential for Chalkless and our ability to expand globally, due to the PCT process that we went through and all the patents we filed internationally, it's a very easy decision when you have that level of protection out there and that confidence that if you do expand into a new market, you don't have to constantly, you still have to watch your back, but at least you have some protection there should somebody come along and try to steal your idea.
Well, for sure. And that's the name of the game. I know we'll get off more into the IP part of it really in detail a little later here, but that's just the name of the game, especially if you have something that's successful, that's making money. Unfortunately, there's bad actors out there, and bad actors are going to try to knock you off. It's almost like a badge of honor. I look at it like, okay, we have something that's worth knocking off, even though it's, it's kind of a pain to go through in real time. You've got to spend money and it's a headache.
But you also get billable hours for those knockoffs, right? I'm the one that has to pay you, so that's the place.
No, for sure. No, you're absolutely right about that. So I guess it's worth it in my from my perspective. But yeah, from your perspective as an inventor, as a business owner, I would imagine that it's painful and can be stressful as well. I was going to ask you this. So with all this, you're placing this material on your hands, and is it really simple as just soap and water, and it kind of washes away the material, and you're kind of back to normal?
Yeah, it's certainly, so back to normal, not quite. So what ends up happening is all it takes is really a surfactant or even alcohol. You can use alcohol wipes and wipe it away. Okay. And you'll completely strip whatever residual chocolates is there off of your hands. But then after you wash them, I'll just use that as an example, because very routinely we have users, especially at trade shows, that will come up, use the product, think it's amazing, and then come back an hour or so later and complain that they weren't able to get it off. They'll say, geez, I washed my hands like 3 times. It's not doing it. And what we have to explain to them is you stripped away all the oil on your skin. That could be very likely the first time in your life you have felt truly oil-free skin there. So even after you go and wash your hands, your grip is still going to be significantly better than it was until you get some of that oil back on there. So it's a very unique kind of feeling. But it's very simple to remove. And again, so unlike chalk, I would say, or other like grip enhancers that actually put something on your hand and you see it, our ultimate objective is to be a subtractive process. So ideally you have no chocolates on your hands. We want you to put on a little bit, grind it into that skin to the best of your ability to strip that oil away from all your pores and all the little cracks. Cloth it, wipe it away, do whatever, and then go to work, because your skin on its own, if you were to look at it under a microscope, is unbelievably textured. It's all crags and nooks and crannies and all these little biting edges that when you grab onto something, your skin is really good at latching on. It's all the slickness there that ends up inhibiting you. So we strip all that away and you're good to go.
Nice. So then I guess with washing the hands, and like you said, you're washing the hands, and this is probably the first time in your life that you truly strip the oil away. So even though your material is gone, it's still going to be a significantly or noticeably better than as far as the grip and less oil than it was before. There's like lotion or other like type of maybe oils and things like that you put on your hand. Would that kind of help out with that? Try to get it to
if you want to get it back, sure. Like people will do that. They'll take like normal cream or something. You can put that on, rub it on. Feeling's totally gotcha.
Gotcha.
Like I said, it all depends. Rub your nose, do whatever, and you'll get it back on there. But yeah, you could use creams or lotions. But I'll tell you this. So some of our applications, because what it does, it absorbs the oil, or it's really any sort of organic type material that's not water-based. So people will put on sunscreen, for instance, or insect repellent when they're out playing golf or whatever, and you can actually sprinkle a little chocolates on your hand and rub it together, and it takes that oil off.
Really?
Yeah. So I keep some in my tackle box fishing. So I put a little bug spray on or something like that, and I'll put it on and grind it in there to like get rid of all the smell. It removes all that organic.
And yeah, we talked about earlier a little bit as far as all the different uses, athletes, you got the military, you have a different fitness, everyday uses. I would imagine that the powers to be in these different arenas have reached out to you guys and say, hey, can I get my hands on that? So how has that process been as far as the leaders within these kind of military or sports, whether it's football, basketball, whatever the case may be, fitness, weightlifting, things like that, reaching out to you and say, hey, can we get our hands on the product? How has that process been?
So I would say that it's been not quite as smooth as you might like to think. I thought it would be, and it certainly hasn't. So each one of these organizations has their own rules and their own governing bodies for those rules. And those rules are reviewed not all that often, or not changed all that often, I should say. So what ends up happening, like I use the NCAA as an example. If you go to their website, every single sport, male and female, has its own set of rules. And you need to go and engage each one of them. If you have something that deviates from what they say, and often it's something vague, like can't leave residue on the ball, or like a lot of weightlifting, very popular, it says like magnesium carbonate only. So just chalk. So then at that point, you need to navigate all those rules, because when you get to a high enough level, people don't want to take the risk or be thought of as using something that's, cheating. Obviously, they don't want to think like they're cheating. So CrossFit is a good example. So we ended up having our product reviewed by CrossFit for the games, because we know there were athletes there that were competing that won in certain podium athletes that were Chalkless users, and they wanted to know if it would be allowed. And CrossFit doesn't endorse or promote any product at all. So they essentially said, we will not stop athletes from using it. which isn't a statement that is necessarily makes an athlete feel warm and fuzzy when they're competing for $1 million or something along those lines. So that's part of what we're trying to figure out right now, is how you go about changing the mindset of all of these different groups to get them to embrace the product. Like even the NBA, for instance, like it was great on the show when someone asked, I was so happy of all the taping they did. One of the ones they chose is when they asked Mark Cuban, so would this be allowed for the NBA? And he's like, oh yeah, no problem. Because we haven't been able to, NBA, NFL, MLB, get a clear answer from any of them to say, yes, you may use Chalkless.
Gotcha.
No, it's us.
Right. No, and again, that's, again, I guess going back to what you were saying as far as with the IP and being in this kind of white space where it's like, okay, it's the unbroached area. I guess that's the other side of it, is that when it comes to sports and these other areas, the applications of it, it's also a kind of a white space that you have to kind of figure out and get around as well. Because I was thinking for football, particularly in the rain where you typically can't, you have to take off your gloves. I would imagine putting Chalkless on. I know you were saying that this stuff still works even though it's raining. That'd be perfect for a receiver or running back to have that grip to hold the ball or to catch a ball even in those rainy conditions. So
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I thought that'd be great, but it seems like you guys are still maybe trying to work through it all with the respective sports and different governing bodies.
Yeah, so I know there's lots of teams right now at the college level that are using it in their weight rooms for sure. And they are saying that they do have certain players on the field that are using it as well. Their position being, per the rules, that there's nothing in there that says that they can't. And like I said, it's subtractive. So they're not putting anything on the ball, provided you wipe your hands. You're just taking the oil away. Because what you'll find is there's a pretty big variation between individuals, how slick their hands are, just based upon that oil production. Where we had one trade show we did once where the 3 people that got the highest, the torque tester we showed on the episode, the highest results we've ever gotten were by 3 brothers. And they all tested like around the same day at the same event, but they had very oily skin. So their initial result was not good. They just grab onto it in their hands. They just couldn't get very much friction there. As soon as they were able to strip that away, they had amazing results because they were able to get rid of it. Some people, not so much. So we like to think of Chalkless as an equalizer. We make sure that everybody's on the same playing field because we get rid of what makes hands slippery, which is different for different people.
And actually, I hadn't thought about that, but and I even like that kind of that marketing strategy to say, hey, we're actually putting people on the same playing field. Because like you said, some people hands are natural or more oily than others for various reasons. But we actually put people on the same playing field. I actually like that from a marketing strategy. I actually like that. So then I know we talked a little bit about the IP portion of it and, with your chemical background, and I'm glad you said it. I thought that was a good plug to say, hey, in that field, if it's something that's not patentable, then we're not going to spend the marketing dollars or the dollars behind it if we can't protect it. So I know a lot of people that I have on here, IP is one of those things where they're trying to figure it out as they go, but it seems like kind of you coming from having that chemical engineering background. And I would expect any engineer, I know I'm an MB major, that already have an understanding of patents. So it seems like when it was time to kind of protect the invention, I would imagine that it was more of a seamless process than someone else who maybe didn't have any experience or history with patents.
So I would say I actually had to reverse my thinking based upon the way that I used to do things. So working for a big chemical company, actually trying to bring innovative new materials to market and get people to try it and use it. Like the last thing that I wanted in that role is for somebody to put out a really good patent that blocked the rest of the world. That was one of my nightmare scenarios. So I don't know if this is the correct terminology or whatever I call it, scorching the earth. So I would go out there and when there was a really good idea that I would come up with, I would very quickly put it in presentations, maybe do a press release, make sure I announce it at a trade show, whatever it is. So there was some sort of public disclosure out there to make it so that they couldn't patent that idea on me.
Oh, so hold on. So you didn't necessarily care for you trying to get a patent on it, or because obviously, like you said, with the public disclosure, once it's out there, then it's considered prior art. But obviously, in some countries, when you have a public disclosure, you are kind of prevented from filing patent application yourselves. I know in the U.S. they give you a year grace period, but were you not concerned with you maybe trying to kind of file for patent protection on that thing that you were putting out?
Because it's so darn expensive. It really is. And when you have 100 great ideas,
Yep.
you don't know which one's going to hit. So I'm not going to patent every one of them and license every one of them and maintain all of those patents, for decades. Like a lot of our patents, we would just let expire because we thought it'd be a great idea and it never really materialized. So one of the strategies that we used at that point was to go out there and notify everybody. And in our mind, that made it so that that we wouldn't get blocked out of certain applications. But when the role was reversed and now I'm on the outside trying to do something similar, I think I probably was a bit short-sighted back then doing those sort of things, because I know that we would not have undertaken this effort and all the money spent and time and diverting resources without the ability to patent it.
Right.
I just wouldn't have done it. So I think there's probably a bunch of things that my old method probably stifled innovation, because those people weren't able to go out there
And I agree with you. I know kind of some Fortune 500 companies that I work for and have as clients. They typically, will file on a lot, and obviously their R&D budgets are huge. But like you said, when annuities come due, they may let it lapse, especially if there's not a whole lot going on. But that didn't keep them from filing it at the beginning. Obviously, we know everything is not going to hit. That's interesting that you didn't think that, okay, some of this stuff was going to hit, some of it was not going to hit, but we're going to try to file. Again, I understand the money is a big part of it, but we're going to file on some stuff that we think is going to hit. And then to the extent that it doesn't hit, we're just not going to keep up with the annuities or pay the maintenance fees on it. So it seems like at least maybe that approach would have been at least kind of considered, as opposed to, we're just going to disclose everything and block everybody else from getting protection on it, which I think is interesting.
Well, so we were also, at least for the materials that I was dealing with, the major producer globally, and there was no threat of anyone coming online anytime soon that was going to be competing with us in both quality and cost. So with that in mind, we knew that any ideas that come out or new products, we were going to be the ones supplying the material for the foreseeable future. Right. So that was just a decision made in this particular case, that it wasn't worth blocking the rest of the world. We wanted everybody to embrace what it was that we had to sell, which, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, but a lot of stuff, like, I would not have done it now with a reverse position.
Right. No, yeah, I definitely understand that. That makes sense. So then kind of moving along here, at some point it was a decision of, okay, let's go on Shark Tank. You got to let me know how things kind of went playing up or kind of leading up to that. I know sometimes it seems like it runs a gamut where maybe a Shark Tank producer reaches out to the person, or some people, they applied to Shark Tank 20 times, and that 20th time was the one that they got on. Some it was the first time. I'm actually supposed to go to the Shark Tank alumni conference down in Tampa and kind of be a podcast there set up next.
Oh, nice.
It was supposed to be a couple months ago, but they had to reschedule it given a hurricane. So it's late January, so I'll be down there for that. So how was your guys' experience kind of leading up to or decision to go on to Shark Tank?
Yeah, so I would say that we never really thought it was very unlikely we would ever get on Shark Tank. I think I can't remember what the estimates are. They don't tell you. It's something around 50,000 companies a year try to get on there through various means. We ended up somehow someone that knew one of the talent scouts, I think it was, or the ones that go out and look for companies. Someone that we knew one of those people and essentially said, hey, you want to take a look at this Chalkless product. It's pretty cool. So we ended up, I think my co-founder had someone reach out to him and said, hey, I'm with Shark Tank. You guys have any interest in jumping into the process? And even that was many, many months before we taped. So at that point, we're like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll do it. And they warned us early on, like, this is a big deal. It's a lot of work. We're going to be, as you progress, we're going to be giving you assignments like on a weekly basis that you have to hit to continue to move through the process. Do you wish to proceed? And of course we were like, yeah, sure, let's do it. No big deal. When they weren't lying, it was something working our way through.
No, and I would imagine, do you think that kind of being on the other side of it, that you're glad that you guys kind of followed through and kind of did those different assignments, or how would you?
Sure. Oh, definitely. I can say that now. Definitely worth it because we aired. That's probably the thing. Like, the nightmare scenario would have been, we went through the whole thing, we taped, and it never got shown. And that would have been the most phenomenal waste of time and money to get us to that point and not be able to reap any of the benefits. I can see why some people get pretty stressed out that go on the show that need it to be successful. We were very fortunate where our growth has been very fast. So we didn't need an investment.
Right. No, yeah, and I was going to say, just kind of watching that episode, it seems like you guys were almost doing $1 million that year. It was close to, it was a little less, but kind of trending in that direction. The year that you guys kind of went on, so it's not like some of these other companies that were trying to figure out. I know some people, they've only been active or business just started up a month ago, or maybe they're only doing $50,000 in sales or whatever the case may be. But it seems like you guys had a nice growth at the time that you guys kind of were taping the Shark Tank show, which I would imagine is kind of a lot more easygoing or less stressful than compared to somebody. I've had people on here who was like, I went on Shark Tank and I was going to get a deal because I had these bills that I had to get paid or whatever the case may be. So I wasn't walking out of Shark Tank without a deal. And I would imagine that's a whole different type of stress. But it seems like you guys were a little bit more easygoing than I guess most.
I can't even imagine being in that situation. It would have made it totally different. It was stressful enough.
Yep.
Taking part in it, but to know that you essentially have to take a deal or you may not be paying your bills when you get back, that would be rough. So we were definitely fortunate in that regard. We more wanted it just for the strategic benefits. If we could get some people that would be able to help us and add value to what we were doing down the road, then that's what we wanted. Not even the money.
No, so I have a couple of questions just about the episode. At some point, I'm not sure if it was Mark or somebody was asking the cost of making it, and I think it was maybe a partner, Greg, was like, I prefer to have that offline. I guess kind of maybe looking back on that aspect, do you, and I know we were talking offline about some stuff that you can and can't share, but was that something that you guys was like, okay, we probably should have just gave that information, or it was like, okay, that was still the right idea to say, hey, we discussed it offline?
That was the right idea.
Okay.
Yeah, we were warned, I will say that in advance of going out there, that you are going to upset every single one of those sharks if you refuse to give up your cost structure. They're just going to hate it. And they weren't lying. So we made the decision. Again, we didn't need a deal from this. And we knew that we had enough people in our value chain that we created from our raw material suppliers, packagers, distributors globally. It wouldn't be fair to all of them to suddenly put out whatever our cost structure is. And if a deal didn't materialize or it didn't feel right to us. So we gave them a blended margin number. All of our products, this is what we're making across the full range of things. Obviously you sell through wholesale. It's not going to be that great versus selling off of our Shopify site.
Yep. Awesome
margin there. But no, it was a decision that we had to have a little bit of heartburn over deciding how we wanted to proceed. And it was the right choice, and we're going to stick by it.
Nice. Hey, I love with, like I said, making a decision and sticking by it. Let me ask you this, because a lot of times you will see with kind of having a two-team partners, a two-person team, I should say, you have maybe one person that has a skill set that maybe is different from the other. So a lot of times you'll see maybe one engineer or technical guy, and then you have another maybe marketing or advertising guy. It seems like both of you and Greg are both on the technical side of things, at least with being engineers. How do you think that has, I guess, helped the situation? And then how has that maybe kind of maybe not helped the situation, if that makes sense?
Sure. So I would say, yeah, Greg, I mean, he said he was a corrosion engineer. I think that's the way he described himself. I mean, really, he's like the ultimate sales guy.
Okay.
Guy's amazing. So the way that he always likes to describe it is he is pretty much always on offense, and I'm the one that's always on defense. So both of us, there's a very healthy tension within our organization where when a new idea comes up, like I'm working on a new version of Chalkless right now, and we start having the discussion, like he'll immediately want to go start bringing it out there, and I'll start bringing up potential IP concerns like, oh, we should really check this. Will we be covered by our existing patents? Do we have to file other things? So it's very good. He is super outgoing, is ready to talk to anybody and pitch anything. And I am far more on the other end to make sure that we're protected so that when we do go out and start talking about things, that's from a safety standpoint, from trademarks, patents, production, all those things, will be covered. And it's actually something that we can deliver on. So it's been great to have those different opinions, but at the same time, there's a very healthy respect for each other and the strengths that we bring.
Yep.
So it's great.
No, I was going to say, it seems like it's a good dynamic there. Like you said, I love the way you explained it with, you being more of the defensive person, which I can absolutely understand that just from talking to you. Whereas Greg, you said he more of the offensive person, kind of wants to get it out and kind of having that good balance as opposed to have two defensive players or two defensive minded partners or two offensive minded partners. I like that. I like that take. And I kind of have some other stuff going on. And I think maybe kind of from a business standpoint I guess my other business partner, he's more so on the defensive minded, where I'm like offensive, let's do it, and kind of figure everything else out later. So yeah, it seems like it's definitely a good dynamic to have. I guess two questions that I always like to ask is, we all know like business is not like a linear trajectory where it's kind of success from the time you start and definitely into the future. It's more of like a sine wave where you have like the ups and the downs. Can you maybe give one of the biggest breakthroughs of Chalkless, and then maybe one of the biggest challenges that you guys had to overcome up until this point?
I'd say biggest, again, I promise this is not just because of the topic of your podcast, but really one of the biggest breakthroughs was getting our first patent granted. And that took multiple iterations. The examiner instantly, nope, everything, whatever, 30 claims, no thank you. So we had to keep going back, and it took multiple trips back there to finally get all of them granted in the end. Amazing, we went from none to all of them. But at that point, we knew we had something. We already knew that the customer loved it. We knew that it did what we said it was going to do. So it was going to be a very easy sale. And now our idea would be protected when we broadly brought it out to the market. So that said, devote resources and time. Go. So that was definitely one of the things that kick things off. Other ones would be just, I'll tell you what, it's like trade shows. Like we went to like a golf trade show a couple of years ago. Had no idea if people would like it for golf. It ends up being probably one of our bigger applications right now.
Really?
Absolutely love it. But we didn't know. So much of it is just extending ourselves and trying a new space. And I'll credit Greg for things like that, because I would have said, nah, go. No, it doesn't make sense. We're not going to do golf. Let's go to fitness. Let's do other ones. And he's like, nope, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And he was right. And it worked. So each one of those, each time we enter a brand new market, there's that, yes, it's good, or no, it isn't. And so there's definite highs and lows there. And we try to test it as quickly as we can in very safe places. So like, as an example, I don't think I mentioned in the show, but my particular gym that I go to, my CrossFit gym, pretty much anything that's been used in the fitness space has been tried there first. They're very receptive to me going in there, mounting a new dispenser, a new particle size. It doesn't matter what it may be, a new bowl, magnetic bowl to catch particles. They give me a place to go out and play, essentially my Chalkless sandbox to test things.
Nice.
Then I know whether or not it's worth devoting more effort as I go down the road. But even in that case, I don't show them anything that doesn't already have, or isn't covered by some of our patents.
Right.
I'm very careful not to disclose any of that until we make sure we're in good space.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's definitely the right way to go. And then I guess from a challenge standpoint, what would you say maybe was one of the biggest challenges that you guys had to overcome up until this point?
Sure. And when we're still trying to overcome this, it's the education piece of this, where people have known chalk's been out there for about 80 years. So a lot of people are very familiar with it. Most people don't like it, don't use it. I was never a chalk user, grip and hands. I didn't like it, made a mess, didn't think it really helped me all that much. So we have to convince people that they have a problem that they didn't necessarily know that they had or mattered. So many people will just work out, for instance, or play tennis. Even my wife plays tennis, and it took me a couple of years, a year plus, to get her to use Chalkless.
Oh, really?
I was like, I've never used anything. I'm fine. My grip's fine.
That's hilarious.
We tried it, and now she's hooked. I watched her at a match the other day, and she's sprinkling on the sidelines and giving it to her friends. But it's definitely a mind. There's a mindset that needs to be changed. So we are either convincing people that think they don't need anything, grip is grip, whatever it is, or there's a cult following for chalk where people essentially bathe in this stuff.
Yeah.
And you need to convince them that you can put something on your hands that you can't see and your grip is going to be better. And that's pretty hard as well, which was the driving force for that torque tester that we built, because what we've been able to show is that everybody would say, wow, it feels better, but we couldn't quantify it. We couldn't find any labs. We couldn't find any ASTM tests or whatever that had the ability to quantify when that friction would break for an individual person. We just couldn't do it. You could find some different materials like shoe leather, rubber on a slope. They had stuff like that, but skin on material wasn't able to find anything. So that's why we invented that, filed for, we've got the patents filed for that particular piece of equipment. But that's been a turning point for sure, because we've been able to show a histogram of these are all the users, the hundreds and hundreds of people that have tested this. And the population, the vast majority of folks are right around here with a 70-ish% improvement in the amount of torque they're able to generate. So that, I'll tell you what, that was another big turning point for us. That was another good one. The downside of this is just the education piece. It's
right.
Really,
and I was going to say, it seems like with all, again, going back to the whole white space and kind of just being this new playground, it seems like every time it's something that's, kind of breaking into a space that's undeveloped, the education piece is a big thing of it. I know Wayne Fromm, who is a Canadian inventor, he invented the selfie stick. I had him on maybe a year or so ago, and he was telling how it's, the selfie stick was just packaged and on the shelf of a store, and people are looking at it and they're like, okay, what is this thing? Because they don't know, they've never seen it before. They don't know the application of it. And again, it wasn't like, the education was there just from looking at the box. So it was kind of tough to kind of provide that education. And it seems like that's a big part of it, especially when we're trying to get people to use something for the first time, or convince somebody that they need this, or convince somebody to go away from something that they've been using since they've been born with the whole chalk thing. I guess with that, have you guys ever thought about like doing, I don't know if it's like a live or maybe kind of weekly. I know you guys do trade shows and things like that, but like this weekly live with maybe you or Greg, and whether you guys are out and about and having somebody else try to test or try the material with their respective sport, or something that kind of you guys are putting out on kind of your channel or your social media, where they're like the masses are seeing this consistently, somebody using it, whether, like I said, it's at different sports or just with the equipment that you guys, the torque tester, and maybe you guys are doing it. That's something that
No, we're not, we aren't. So like I say, you're the first podcast that I've done. So we have our head of digital marketing here, and she's one of the ones that's very actively encouraging me to go out and do stuff like this. This is definitely not in my comfort zone, or something that I have historically seen value in. No offense, but it's one where we need to be able to get that message out there, and through forums like this, which I think is great, being able to have this discussion, I think we can definitely educate people in a way that I hadn't appreciated up till this point. And maybe that's just the engineer in me, the textbooks, the math, go in my little workshop and lab and do my own thing and come up with a solution. Wow, this is great. But if you can't convey that message, no one's ever going to use it.
For sure. Yep. So you can have the greatest thing since sliced bread at that point. But like you said, just having to convince people that, hey, they should use this, or they should at least take a stab at it. I definitely agree with that. And yeah, it's different. I've been doing this thing for maybe a couple of years now, and I'm along the same boat, just having that engineering background, and like I said, more so dealing with the numbers and not necessarily being as kind of out there in front of the camera. But I guess here I am doing this for 2 years now. So I guess things have changed with me as well. And I probably would say I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert. But it's cool. Like I said, meeting inventors such as yourself and kind of just learning and seeing the cool things that's out there. I don't know. I've kind of found some good in it all.
Oh, heck yeah. No, I really like your angle. You're the only one I've responded to thus far, with my own personal account too, just because it was intriguing. I'm constantly scouring the internet to see what people are saying, if there are things I need to watch out for. And I just saw yours and just watched it. I really liked the way that you did it. Yep. And I was very curious right to the end,
and I appreciate that, because it seems like we're both kind of on the same page as far as the importance of the IP of it. But just some of the other things that you guys were doing with the torque tester, I love kind of being able to show that, to quantify it, to show, hey, you actually are getting kind of better grip with the material, and then like obviously having the patents and the different uses of it. I love the fact, which I thought I didn't even, I'm thinking about sports or whatnot and fitness, but I hadn't thought about the military applications, and even underwater. It was like, what, you can use this thing underwater. So it's just different applications that I hadn't thought, that kind of looking at your guys, I'm like, oh yeah, I really like this product. This is something that's going to be around for a long time. So I look, as someone who is excited on the other side of it, I know you guys are like ecstatic at this point, because I'm looking at the product like, man, they have something here. I've never
No, thank
seen
you.
it.
No, it's totally overwhelming. And I'll say the fortunate thing is so many different use cases have popped up that, yeah, the sky's the limit, but it's also diluting so many of our efforts. Where something we haven't even pursued, but like the torque tester, the very best result we've ever got was actually from a lady that had horrible arthritis in her hands. Her knuckles were all swollen. She got, I think it was a half a pound when she grabbed that bar, being able to twist it, could barely generate any torque at all. And she put on a little bit of Chalkless, rubbed it in. I think she was close to 3 pounds or something along those lines. So this lady was so excited because she had to, ask her husband to come and open jars for her, or even like be able to pick things up because she wasn't able to get that grip. So that, in that case, it could be life-changing for her, being able to put that on and actually perform tasks that all of us take for granted.
Yep.
So that's huge. But as far as how you go about necessarily marketing that, we haven't figured that part
For sure. But that's the good thing about the torque tester and just kind of getting the feedback from the customers, because you find out new uses of it. I guess I would have never thought somebody with maybe a medical condition can use this thing and have better results, be able to kind of get more torque to open jars or open handles and things like that they would not have been able to beforehand. Hopefully they don't she doesn't leave her husband because she doesn't need him to open the jars anymore.
Well, let's hope not. They seem pretty happy. I got to meet both of them. But we had some physical therapy clinics using it. I probably should have mentioned that as well, because they'll find is if you have an elbow, shoulder injury, whatever it may be, the first thing that goes for people is their grip. So as you're trying to rehabilitate those different joints and muscle groups, very often your hands get tired out from squeezing hard before you really can tax those other muscles and joints. So they're putting it on their patients to be able to help them work other muscle groups.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's one of the things the very first time I started using it for exercise, I started like muscles hurt that had never hurt before, because so often I would have to let go as my forearms would get tired or my hands. Because subconsciously, your brain doesn't give you the choice. As your hand starts to slip, you just squeeze harder and harder and harder until you fail. If you don't have to squeeze that hard, what we end up finding is not only can people lift more, but they can do things longer. They can do more reps. Or we had a user the other day reach out to us that his dead hang time, that's something he likes, he doubled. Because there wasn't that constant squeezing because his hand wasn't slippery.
Right. Which uses energy that's kind of taken away from you being able to stay up there longer.
Yeah, it's all those little stabilizer muscles and all that stuff too that'll tax you. So the military, that's part of the angle there. They love the idea of making it so that their soldiers aren't going to get tired sitting there holding a gun all day. So lots and lots of really cool angles.
For sure.
All thanks to patents.
Nice. So I guess the last two questions that I'll ask you here before we get you up out of here. Number one, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs? And this is interesting because, again, you've kind of come from the patent world or whatnot, but as far as someone who may be kind of, they're sitting on this ideal, or maybe we all have ideals or whatever the case may be. A lot of times we don't move on them, but for someone who maybe have an ideal, business ideal, whatever the case may be, that they want to kind of protect via IP and maybe kind of get off into, what advice would you give to someone like that? Well, to hopefully maybe make them kind of get off and pursue their ideal, or maybe not make them pursue their ideal.
Yeah, no
so
problem.
Just an aspiring entrepreneur, what advice would you give to them?
All right. So I would say, first thing is, if you think you've got a good idea, don't be too excited about it and go start telling people. Like, it's real hard to resist, but keep your mouth shut, take good notes, date things. I know it's not as important now as it used to be. Was it not first to file, but first to invent? Now
first to invent. Yeah, people. I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people say, well, all you have to do is just mail it to yourself, and I'm like,
not anymore.
Yeah, just you have to file it first. It's first to file. It's not first to invent. So I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah, so that definitely changed things. But don't go out and start telling all your friends, and they tell somebody. It completely ruin things for you. So don't do that. If an idea doesn't look like it's going to be good, then accept it and move on. Like, the worst thing you can do is try to beat a dead horse, and it's not going to materialize. You'll spend lots of time and lots of money on something that probably isn't there. So some of the best advice you can get from people or feedback is, this isn't good. And then at least you can move on and do something else. So when you hear that stuff, actually be willing to listen, because more often than not, and I know I've been guilty of it, I'll have something in my head thinking this is the right way to do it. And I haven't been able to objectively hear comments that are contrary to what it is that I'm thinking. So that's always have an open mind. Don't try to develop stuff inside your own little box. Find an IP attorney that you can really build a relationship with.
I like
and,
that.
and you trust. And that's something that has been invaluable through this process, because at least when we first started talking to this guy, he had no clue what the raw material was, what the application was, or anything else. So there was a lot of iteration there as we were going back and forth, so he could learn about it and best formulate language in our patents to help protect us, which years, step forward to now, I mean, he knows this stuff cold. So ideas that I don't have, he's able to comment on, and vice versa. So it's become a much more engaging process. Before it was me telling them. Now it's us going back and forth to come up with strategies that are going to protect us, not just with what we're immediately doing, but ideas down the road. And that's what I'm facing right now, where I was talking about, Greg, my partner, being on the offensive. I'm watching little text messages pop up in my window here where I've got a new idea that I'm working on, and he's asking me for, status and what did I do, so he can go out there and start talking about it. And I don't even tell him about what it is that I'm working on until I talk to the IP guy first. They'll say, hey, I think we're going to be okay with what we currently have out there. Could you just verify that we're in good shape? And because I've worked with the same guy for so many years, right away, he's able to tell me. And I couldn't do that if I used, I don't even know what the services are, LegalZoom or do something like that, or instantpatentfile.com or something. You're not going to be able to get that level of assistance, which you may think that you're saving money initially. And you are. I mean, yes, you're not paying all the money for an expert like yourself,
right.
But unless you're protected, it's not worth it. It's not worth the number you get issued if it's not done well.
And I agree with that. And like I said, I've learned so much just kind of doing these podcasts, and I didn't realize maybe something that I took for granted, that a lot of people, especially kind of startups who really don't know as much about IPA as they are getting into it, have bad experiences with their at least their initial IP attorney, because a lot of times it seems like it's just a lack of communication. But like you said, and not saying that they're going through LegalZoom, but having that IP attorney who kind of seems like you have a great IP attorney who really communicates and is more of a team effort, it is a great thing, as opposed to somebody who is not communicating with you, or you just don't have a good relationship with that. That definitely can make things tougher and then frustrating for the inventor or for the business owner. So yeah, I definitely second everything that you said in that regard. Then I guess we'll say the last question: how can people follow you? How can people follow Chalkless and purchase the product? Like I said, I love the fact that it has a ton of uses, which we all use our grip at some point, maybe throughout the day or throughout our life. So this is not something that is for just athletes or just for military applications, or just for if you're kind of playing tennis or whatever the case may be. Everybody kind of uses their grip, so this applies to everyone out there. So how can people kind of follow Chalkless and yourself and everything, the cool things that you guys have going on, but also purchase the product?
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. So yeah, our handles for all the social media accounts is just at Chalkless Grip, all one word. We sell over Amazon as well as our website. You can also get it at Rogue Fitness right now. You can get it at Dick's, which is great. That's fairly new. You can get on Dick's Sporting Goods website. The TikTok shop, we actually just started selling on that, and we're anxious to start getting some people to start creating some content for us, because that's what's more so than any fancy media shoot or commercial or thing we've tried to do. It's really been those people that have a trusted following that have gone out there and just on their own have posted and said, this stuff is amazing, or this has changed my life, or whatever it is. Those are the ones that are bumping sales for us and getting the word out there more so than anything I could just, create an ad and do. So forums like this and other folks are going to be key to our growth. And we definitely appreciate any comments people make or questions they want to post. I pretty much see every one of them. Happy to answer them.
Nice. So again, it seems pretty straightforward. Like I said, Ed Chalkless Grip, social media handle, is it the website chalkless.com?
It is chalkless.com. Sorry, I probably should have said that. Yeah, just chalkless.com.
For sure. So definitely go pick that up. Hopefully you guys, the audience members, have your pen and your paper handy on this one, because James, he brought a lot of good stuff, a lot of golden nuggets to share with you guys. And yeah, like I said, this is, I just probably like 60, 70 of these episodes, and it's only a few of them that I've done, and I'm like, I really like this product, and your guys is definitely one that I think.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it has something to be around for a long time. So, and at some point, I'm pretty sure I'll be kind of rolling around. I'm not as active in a sports arena as I used to, but I have to kind of figure out a way to use it. It definitely seems like it's worthwhile. So I definitely, I know at some point I'll be a customer as well. So all
We'll
these
be at the PGA show at the end of January. I think you said in Florida, in Orlando. So I don't know where you are in Orlando or in Florida.
Tampa.
Okay, so they're not really that close, but still, I'm sure we'll run into each other. And I was cruising through your videos and I didn't see anything, but I thought if you ever had a desire to produce one of the things that was a struggle for me early on, and I was familiar with patents, but I always had like in-house legal counsel, is if there was even just like a, patent process 101, like you said, for that new inventor that's out there to essentially discuss like, this is the form you need to file. And this is kind of the threshold to decide to do it, which is fairly low, right? For the provisional, it's not that big a deal. But I just had a discussion with like one of my coworkers right now. We have an idea for something else. And she didn't know the process.
Yeah.
And she's a very smart lady. So I think if there was I struggled to find and dumbed down is the wrong word, but that's really like, that's what I was looking for. Like, I'll tell you, like I'm trying to learn CAD and I'm learning it from a Canadian elementary school teacher on YouTube. That's the best way to do it. Yeah. Just because they're the ones that describe it in the easiest format. I've never done CAD before. So I'm finding that's a good way to do it. And so if someone like yourself who can speak in very plain language and make it relatable could actually go out there and say, this is what you need to do, it'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, and so I might have to kind of, I appreciate you saying that, because that now I have kind of getting the wheels turning, and I have some thoughts on that. I'll maybe have to kind of put some stuff together, kind of put out, because I do think that is worthwhile. And like you said, a lot of people, which it is, kind of can be costly, but initially it doesn't have to be as costly for you to at least get something on file with the provisional application, and then now you can go show it and kind of do what you need to do to try to get money or kind of talk to manufacturers and things like that. So no, I appreciate you saying that. I have some ideas on that one. So I appreciate that. Well, audience members, until next time, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. You guys take care.
Yeah, thank you.